All right, well, welcome back, everyone, to our fall webinar series. I'm Justin Anderson, Smart Campus Operations Lead here at ESRI on the education team. So this is the second of 3 webinars in our fall series focusing on network management with the ArcGIS Utility Network. Today's utilities need actionable information to support complex networks. No matter your campus size, utilities need to provide a safe working environment, deliver reliable service, and maintain a focus on customer support. The ArcGIS Utility Network is designed to be the next generation spatial information system to provide greater functionality over massive datasets at every scale of resolution. Today, utilities can leverage the power of the entire ArcGIS system to provide tools with a focus on the user experience and improve communication across your organization. So with us today, again, we have Brian Baldwin, Senior Solution Engineer on the education team here at ESRI. And our guest presenters today are Ray Garrett from the University of Michigan and Eric Carroll from the University of Kentucky. Both these gentlemen have a wealth of knowledge in GIS in the utility space. Next slide, Brian.
Sure thing.
So a quick look at today's agenda. I'll start with some housekeeping items here and a brief overview of the webinar series and today's content. Then I'll turn things over to Brian, who will walk through the ArcGIS utility and tracing networks. From there, Ray will take over and provide some information and examples on their use of GIS with electric utilities. Following Ray, Eric will review some utility applications and examples at the University of Kentucky. Then I'll jump back in and walk through some of our ESRI resources that you can utilize to help align with our ESRI team and our utility solutions. We'll go over some actions you can take for when you'd like to get started, and then we'll open things up for Q&A. Next slide, Brian. So a little housekeeping here. If you have questions, like the last webinars, please enter them into the chat box. There is a raise hand button, but we ask that everyone just please enter your questions into the chat box. We do have staff monitoring those questions, so they'll either respond directly back to you immediately, and if there are things we don't get to or can't answer at the time, we'll make sure to respond in an email after the webinar. Same goes for questions for Ray and Eric. We can pass those along to them if they don't have time to answer them today during the webinar. All microphones will be muted. We will have a Q&A session at the end. We're hoping to have around 10 minutes for that. And then we will have a poll and a survey that we'll ask all of you to complete towards the end of the webinar. The poll will be around a utility user group, and then we also make changes to these webinars based on your feedback in the surveys. Next slide, Brian. So as many of you are already aware, ESRI has been the global market leader in GIS technology for the past 50 years. ESRI was founded to help solve some of the world's most difficult problems. We do so by supporting our users' important work with a commitment to science, sustainability, community, education, research, and positive change. With 49 offices worldwide and employees from 73 countries, ESRI is a global company. We have 11 dedicated research centers that are at the leading edge of GIS innovation. And we have more than 7,000 colleges and universities using ESRI software both in and out of the classroom. Next slide, Brian. All right, so the purpose of this webinar series, again, was to show out-of-the-box ArcGIS solutions for campus utilities and public safety teams to digitally transform campus operations. Each webinar highlights some key products for expanding the use of GIS solutions, and workflows to support a variety of campus stakeholders. The focus of this second webinar is network management with the ArcGIS Utility Network. The utility network is configurable for any utility or organization with linear assets. Our solutions explore the world of electric, gas, water, telecommunications, district heating and cooling. We can also tie into architecture, construction, and engineering projects. Campuses can capture the operational requirements of utility assets with the utility network framework. Network domains let you model operational and structural networks in an integrated fashion, while network rules help you build networks that suit your business requirements. The utility network operates at all scales of resolution, giving your organization the ability to model features and assets at the right scale for your needs. From the largest facility to the smallest asset, the UN can provide insights to support you. So for more on the UN and some of our utility solutions, I'm going to turn things over to Brian to take a deeper dive into our configurable utility solutions. Brian, it's all yours, man.
Always good to unmute yourself before you start talking. Thanks a lot, Justin, and I'm glad nobody had to say you're on mute. Great to see everybody. Thanks so much for coming back, and great to see you if you're new to the series. So the first thing that I wanted to mention, and this is going to be old material for those that have sat in on a couple of these webinars, is just the fact that GIS has changed a lot over the past few years. And I like to just bring this up again as a reminder for those that are new to the sessions that, you know, traditionally a lot of people would think of GIS as just the old campus map and a piece of paper that you walk around and you kind of look at and try to find assets. And a lot with the technology has changed, you know, in the past 5-10 years. GIS is now a way to do quick and easy mobile inspections. You know, within honestly a day, you could have an asset inventory, asset inspection, you know, application up to go and capture information in the field, or even provide updates to assets that you have in the field. Or for me, one of the most powerful ones are the two dashboards you can see as examples. Or actually, there's 3 of them on there. And one of them very relevant to this call is the one on the far left, the water management. So the ability to tie in, you know, not only historical information, maybe inspections or age of assets or, you know, installation dates, but you can also feed in real-time information to see pressure or flow and then present that information into a dashboard. And the other one up in the top right-hand corner is great for physical assets as well, showing, you know, sidewalk ramp statuses, maybe based on inspections, the quality, you know, where are the places that investments need to be made. And that's really the power of GIS, is again, not just that paper map, but using that information for something where you can now take action with it. As well, in the last presentation, I talked about and mentioned briefly just some of the campus utility challenges. And, you know, not to spin this as a broken record again, but we hear these same challenges come up almost every time we engage with and talk with a customer. You know, the one that I hear over and over again is just the fact that there's a lot of information and a lot of intelligence that's sitting in employees' heads. And the second they are offered, you know, an early retirement package or a way out the door, they can then leave the campus and leave the university with all that information of, you know, where that secret water valve is that does the isolation for a part of campus, and nobody maybe even knows where the thing is because it hasn't been, you know, exercised in 5-10 years. So it's this range of challenges, and that's where GIS can kind of help step in and answer some of these. And again, there's a lot of challenges today if it's data quality, aging infrastructure, but moving forward, how can you start to solve some of these things that utilities and campuses are needing to deal with in the future as well? So I like to break this down into 3 buckets. On the last webinar, if you missed it, we talked about data management for ArcGIS Online. And so what that provides is, to sum it up as simply as possible, a basic schema that gives you a place to put your kind of attributes and industry standard data models, and it also gives you visualization. So if you just need to get information digitized and out to the field, it's a great simple data model to get things up and running. But it does not provide any network capabilities. So it's simple points, simple lines to visualize that information, be able to see and get access to those attributes, which can still be really powerful for a lot of different domains that you manage. What we're going to be talking about today on the call, and what Ray and Eric are going to be walking through, are the ways that they've used the utility network and have started looking at implementing it. And there's 2 approaches here that I wanted to say, and the reason I have this in kind of the 1, 2, 3 is these can also be steps. So for some folks, if they have no information digitized, no data available, getting started with that step number 1 is a really easy first approach to just start getting information digitized in a spatial format. The number 2 is getting the utility network loaded into a file geodatabase. So as you'll hear from Eric and Ray, starting to get your information loaded in, it can be a pretty laborious process. It's not going to be just a simple 1, 2, 3 and data's loaded and you've got a fully functioning network. There's a lot of requirements in place for the accuracy of your data and getting rules enabled and set up. And also, if you want to have all of your data available to multiple users and services, et cetera, it requires ArcGIS Enterprise, hence that bullet number 3 there, ArcGIS Enterprise. So that mid step allows you to do some migration of data, test a data model, load information, get your data accuracy and quality up to speed and up to par, and so you can load that all into a file geodatabase. So that's an easy way if it's a single user, or if you just want to do some testing and some QA, QC, that's a way to start looking at loading information. Waiting for my slide to catch up. There we go. Oh, go back a second. So this is a quick recap of some of the capabilities of the network management tools for ArcGIS Enterprise, AKA the utility network. On the slide that I showed last, our session last time, is really about, as I said, symbology and attributes and getting your data just in a spatial view. The utility network, the power here is really around the advanced network modeling, that line I've got coming up on the top left-hand side. So not only modeling the physical network, which you could start to do with those simple solutions, but also the logical connectivity. With a network that's really complex, something maybe fiber or communications, we've heard a lot of folks from that side say, great, we know where conduit is, we know where these bays are, but we want to understand how fiber is running from here to here. What do those connections start to look like? And so if it's fiber, water, wastewater, any of the domains I've listed over on the right-hand side, you can start to model not only that physical network, but the logical connectivity of it as well, to actually have a true network with traceability and an ability to see how the commodities are flowing throughout that network. And I've got a bunch of other details there at network tiers, the sub-networks, terminals. So there's a lot of advanced functionality depending on how deep you want to take it and how advanced you want to model that network. A good example of this is water. So if you have a switch cabinet or if you have a bay, you can start to model the internals of that and how the internal assets of that now function and relate to the larger network. Same thing with electric or gas. And the one piece there as well that I think is great to understand and be aware of, in the geometric network, you had functionality where everything had to be coincident. So all of your features, all of the geometries basically had to touch to have connectivity take place. The utility network allows you to basically build connectivity based on a rule set. So you can say this asset or this line or this pipe or this wire is connected to this valve, to this transformer bank over here, and set up those relationships. Tracing, containment, diagrams, there's a lot of functionality in here that it would take, and we have taken hours to dive into and go into a lot of the detail. So if you're curious about functionality I mentioned here, or the use cases or reasons for kind of employing and investing in this technology, just reach out and we can dive into a deeper conversation on this, because this slide alone, has been gone into, and I would say in a 5-day seminar, we could kind of walk through, what this means for a customer. And so in just 3 minutes, I wanted to walk through a quick demonstration of what a little bit of functionality could look like. So I just dragged my phone over onto the screen and hope everybody can see that. And so the reason that I wanted to do a demonstration for my phone is that this is kind of where people have been trying to get to for a long time. Yes, you can manage your networks, you can look at utility information on a desktop, but I want to be able to get data into the field. I want to be able to run traces in the field. I want to be able to see connectivity in the field and let users do edits and get that information into their hands wherever they might be working. And so I have loaded up a dev build version of field maps. And so this is just the, ESRI's off-the-shelf product. And this is functionality that it's going to be baked into it in the release coming out in December. And if you want to join the beta program to test this, it's open right now. So you can go and join and play around with the same functionality that I'll show right here. So I'm just going to pan around the map a little bit, and let's zoom into an area that has some network features. And so as I'm zoomed out, you can see all of the subnetworks for this area. And for a campus, you could do this for different tiers or different pressures, for water or for gas networks, or for electric, you could have this be kind of your internal networks, and then you could also have this be medium voltage kind of outside of buildings. So as I zoom in, I'm going to get more detail that's going to show up inside of the view. And for any of these features, you can then click and get any of the details and any of the attribute information just right inside of the pop-up. And so this is just a configuration to expose whatever attributes you have in your data to be able to get this out to users. Do I want them to see when this was created? Do I want them to see what network this is a part of, what the voltage is, etc.? And then another piece of functionality that is in this dev build of field maps, I mean, up to right now, you can do all of this today, is I'm going to click on this low voltage conductor, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to get access to the ability to actually push traces into the field maps application. So here I've published out two different trace configurations. So if you wanted to do a trace that is just doing a valve isolation, or is just doing a trace to return transformers that are upstream or downstream, you can configure that and then publish that as a service, and now it can be consumed in the app. So here I'm going to click, I want to run that basic trace, hit continue. And then there in the view, you can see that in field maps, in a connected mode, I just ran that trace to see how the flow of that is going from upstream from that low voltage conductor. And where does that go upstream? What are the other assets that that's traveling through? And I can go in and now get any of the attributes or details for that. So that is one of the pieces of functionality coming to field maps just off the shelf that'll be out in the December release. And again, the value of that is seeing you have now a connected network in the palm of all of your users' hands from wherever they're working, just in an off-the-shelf app from ESRI. So to recap, we went through the week prior the data management for ArcGIS Online. So there's a lot of resources, there's a lot of ways that you can use that solution. If it's for simple viewing, simple attributes, and just maps and symbology. If you need to get your data into the hands of people in the field, you're good to go. The 2 and 3 are the utility network. These as well are solutions that are up on our solutions website, which you can just go and download. So if you go to the solutions page for ESRI and you look for this data management for ArcGIS Enterprise, this will be the core model and configurations and the maps and layers ready for you to migrate your data in, and or just to test with the sample data that's published out, even the same data you just saw me use in the map today. So with that, I will stop talking and probably turn it over to the people that you actually want to hear from on the call. I'm really excited to have Ray and Eric with us. Ray is going to be walking through a presentation of some of the work they've done, primarily in working in kind of getting their electric information, their electric assets moved over into the utility network. And so with that, let me flip it over to you, Ray, and I'll let you kick it off.
Okay, can you see my presentation all right? Okay, very good. Well, thank you, Brian. And I'm really excited about the trace being available and the field map apps coming up. Can't wait to use that. And so before I'd start, I'd like to take and thank ESRI and Brian and Justin for this opportunity to discuss the University of Michigan's electric utility network GIS efforts. One thing I do have to do before I start, though, is a bit of a disclaimer, and that the views that I express here today are my views and not necessarily reflecting the views of the University of Michigan. And the use or any non-use of any products mentioned here does not constitute an endorsement or a rejection by the University of Michigan. So it's all on me and nothing from U of M side. Okay, so I've been with the U of M since 2006. I'm the senior manager of the Records Management Services group. We've got 5 FTEs in our group, 2 of them that are focusing on CAD and GIS electrical, and then 3 folks in GIS, and I'm one of those 3. We cover a lot of different areas, everything GIS and mapping for facility services, the MISTIG administration, integration of AIM and GIS to transfer data back and forth. AIM is the authoritative source for some of the information. GIS is the authoritative source for others, and so we commingle the information back and forth. And then we take care of the electrical documentation for CAD and the distribution management system for the medium voltage system. And so we started out in the utilities department, so we're very heavy on the utility side. And then with a reorganization, we were brought in with some GIS folks from the rest of facilities, and now we take care of everything inside the box and outside the box for GIS. One thing that I would like to mention where GIS is playing a helping part is that the U of M is committed to a carbon neutrality for campuses by 2040. It's a staged approach, and for the utilities purchased, we are planning and on schedule to be carbon neutral for all utilities purchased by 2025. Well on the way for that progress. All right, and here's just some of the different types of assets that we deal with, tunnels and everything. All right, so what I want to talk about today is the electric utility network and our efforts that we put in to transition over. And before you do, you really need to take and think about why you want to do this and make sure it's the thing that you want to do. It does take a fair amount of effort to switch over on the electrical side. And talking with other people in my experience with the gas side and the sewer and storm side, that a transition, if you were in a network before, is not necessarily as difficult. The electric is a little bit more involved. There's some more options there. So you really need to evaluate why you want to use it and what benefits that you're going to gain for it. Other important factors are what's your scope and what's your use cases. From what areas is this going to be the source of truth? A lot of the universities, we already have maintenance systems for doing work orders and stuff. And so how much of the information belongs in a system like AIM and how much of it belongs in the GIS system? And that's a constant discussion that goes back and forth on where that dividing line should be. And are you going to take and make it web accessible? You know, with the field apps coming out being traceable, that's a great step forward to being able to get and utilize the power of the utility network out in the field. You can do it now with Web App Builder, but Experience Builder will be a little bit before they've got the widgets in there to be able to take and do it there. But the fact that it's coming to field map apps is great and will be for everybody's benefit. Another piece is how good is your data? The utility networks doesn't like things like dangles and crossovers, other pieces of data like that. If you're in a network already, you've got to step up. It's not near as hard to transfer because there's a lot to clean up. If you're not in a network already, then there's a fair amount of cleanup that you're going to need to plan for and to plan your time for it. Another factor is what's the knowledge and skill level of the people that you have. Do you have people that are good at the enterprise level SDE behind the scenes and can take and work the system? And with COVID and cutbacks and everything, a lot of people that I've talked to are short staffed on universities and are just catching up. Do you have the people and the personnel to be able to take and devote the time to do it? I also recommend that if you have the capacity and the funds to be able to take and use professional support if available, whether it be a ESRI partner or ESRI professional services, they can help you along in your efforts with the utility networks. All right, so this is just some slide pieces from one of ESRI's pages, which I have the source there for, and it gives a good overview for evaluating, what are you actually going to use this for? So as a system of engagement, we use it all the time with our shop personnel in the fields, both from an apps and a map standpoint. And that's where the primary use of this is. We started our system from the shop level up. It wasn't intended for upper management. And so it was geared around what the shop personnel's needs are. We're bringing it from a system that had IoT integration, and we're in the process of putting IoT integration in there now so that we can show what the voltages are, what the current flows are, and all of that information so it's available to folks in the field and at the desktop at their fingertips. For us, it is the system of record for virtually everything electrical as the first source. We do take and bring the information out into other packages, especially for things like design and engineering. They'll start with what we have in the GIS, and then we'll take and bring it over into something like SKM Power Tools if we're doing analysis for breakers and trip coordinations. We haven't done a whole lot as far as analytics is concerned yet. The folks in the field and the shops aren't as concerned with the analytics, but as the product matures, we believe that we'll be putting and adding in more analytics for the package for upper management. When we switch over to a different utility network and get the water end finalized, then the analytics are going to be much higher there because they use it for things like age determination and for planning, long-term planning for what they're going to do for replacements and things. And we can pull all of that information out of the GIS. So physical scope is very important because everything in the utility network is based on a rule package. And what the size of your rule package is dependent upon scope. Do you take and need to have your sources come in from your local utilities, if you're getting any from them, to your campus? So for example, we have DTE as our source. We generate about 65% of our own electricity, and we get the rest of the electricity from DTE. And so to coordinate with them, especially from a phasing angles aspect, we need to know what the stations are and what our substations and switching stations are connected to which of the DTEs. So that those gray lines on the left-hand side package are the DTE tiers, and we separated out the DTE into a separate tier so that we can take and track and record them, but we don't need the high level of rules required for what their connectivity is. So the rules for their connectivity are a lower level. Another example where scope is important is on the right-hand side, and how far are you going to go into the building? The base rule package that ESRI presents as the example and a starting point is Naperville. And Naperville is built for a transmission and distribution area type system. They do cover low voltage, but it's not the focus. Larger utilities stop at the meter at the side of the house or the side of the building, and they don't go inside. We've got 340 substations that are inside the buildings, and so we transfer from outside the building. Typically it's underground, inside, and so how you handle conductors going inside the building is very important. The Naperville package has an underground and an overhead conductor type. And to transition between underground and overhead, you need to put a riser in, because the larger utilities are all thinking about it going from underground up a pole to an overhead line. Well, that's not how we work in a campus environment. We're going underground through the side of a building into the building. So what we did was we created another type of conductor and added it to the rules, and we call it above ground. So that would handle all of the items that were inside a building, and also the substations that we have outside that are connected box to box in the substation. So you've got a lot of flexibility to make changes, but with that flexibility takes an understanding of the rule package. So you've got to take a look at and why the cases are so important. It's all because of the rules, the rules, the rules. The rules take and drive everything here. You've got to make a decision on whether you're partitioned or hierarchical. Naperville is partitioned, and so are we, but you can do hierarchical and electrical depending upon how your system is set up. Does the tier definition meet what you want to do for your mesh requirements? Meshing is done a lot more on university campuses than it is for distribution groups. And there are some items that you've got to take and look at from a meshing standpoint. It doesn't meet your requirements. What are the number of tiers that you want? What are the number of voltages that you're going to have? Does your different tiers need separate voltage domains? It gets the domains get very large from a quantity standpoint, depending upon how you want to take and handle it. And do you need to separate your devices for each volt range? And as I mentioned before, what type of conductors are you doing? And then you have to answer the question, once you get your specs down, take a look at Naperville and ask yourself, will the Naperville asset package work for you? It's a good asset package. It works very well for distribution and transmission. We found for our case that it was a little too complex for us, and we needed to put a little bit more emphasis on the low voltage side. So comparing some of the things that we did, we completely rewrote the rule package, and we took the tiers. Naperville had 6, we dropped them to 5. The conductor types, Naperville has 18, we dropped them to 5. Voltages, they've got 35, we dropped to 11. And domains, a significant drop, and the number of devices, a significant drop. But the rules are another piece. They have over 6,000 rules, and we dropped it to 991. Tried to follow the KISS principle, reducing it down to what we absolutely needed based on the personnel that we have to take and put the system in. This does take a lot of effort, so just be aware of that. If you're going to rewrite the rule package, be prepared to spend a lot of time doing it. But make sure your rule package is solid before you do your final import, and clean up your data as much as possible before the final import. All right, so where we're at now, we've got the rule package totally rewritten. We've imported the data. We were on ArcFM, so it wasn't a network before. It wasn't as bad cleaning it up. There are things that we had to take and add in that were different, that took a fair amount of time. All of a sudden, networks are associated, and it's been released for internal maintenance and updates, and we've been doing that for quite a while. We're still in the process of putting associations together. We're not going to be using diagrams. That's a very powerful piece for the asset package, except for the overall campus. Because we do the CAD work for the one lines for all the substations and switching stations, for us to do a diagram is really a duplication of that effort. So at this point, we're just too resource constrained, and we're going to use the PDFs of the CAD as pop-ups for the one lines. We're in the process of putting together a web app. We're still proving the mesh capabilities of it. There are some pieces of it that we still have to work out with that. And the full release to the electrical crew, we're expecting first quarter next year, and full IoT integration, we're expecting first quarter next year. So things to watch out for. If medium and low is what you really need to want to focus on, then you may want to take and adjust the rule package. Again, try to keep it simple. How you want to handle conductors, or how far you're going into the box. One thing is you do have to branch version with the electrical network. Branch versioning, I love it, it's great, but there are some things behind the scenes from the SDE maintenance standpoint that you'll run into with branch versioning. You can only publish one layer per feature class for an editing service. You can duplicate it once you get it into the service, but then when you republish it, you end up having to do it again for the end user. And just a general, this doesn't have anything to do with the utility network, but not all arcade symbology at this point supported in the web maps. Again, be careful with loops and meshes, and the trace widgets coming along. Glad to hear us in field map apps in December, and it'll be an experience builder scheduled for March of 22. And I recommend using the 10.9 geometric network tied to Pro version 282. One thing to be very careful of is that you don't allow your folks to update Enterprise or Pro above the compatibility level for the UN tool package. They have to be kept in sync, or else you have to backtrack. And so I just want to thank the RMS team. Without all their efforts, that we wouldn't have been able to do this. And Jim and Chris, they did an excellent job in putting this together. And the four of us, I think, worked really well. And with ESRI, I want to thank ESRI and you attending for allowing us to share our experience.
Awesome, thanks so much, Ray. So if anybody has any questions for Ray, and if there are multiples, please just drop them in the chat. We'll get to as many as we can at the end of the presentation. But without further ado, I'm just gonna pass it right over to you, Eric. Eric can kind of talk through the vision and kind of what they've been doing at Kentucky to look at getting the utility network rolled out. Take it away, Eric.
All right, great. Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. You know, for a little bit of being expeditious here, I'm going to kind of fly through some slides for everybody. First of all, I am Eric Carroll with the University of Kentucky. I'm the IT manager for infrastructure operations. Basically, we're a consolidation of a GIS entity and network operations, and where we have consolidated together to be able to bring technology into the world of kind of like what's happening out in the real world. And put those together. So I did originally start out very heavily in utilities and just utilities GIS alone. And we did a lot of things, you know, with that was kind of led to some discoveries of where there were greater needs for us. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about where we are in things and why it is that what has led us to making the decision to go into utility network. First of all, you know, a lot of us being GIS professionals, we understand the value of GIS, and probably more so than some of our colleagues who may not really see the benefits of the value of where these things can benefit them in their jobs. What we wanted to do with GIS was to create a geospatially centric and consolidated system that not only allows for really cool maps and pictures and things that we can print out, but allows for us to collect, analyze, and track complex infrastructures and equipment that's across our campus. You know, it's got some, the consolidated system has several powerful components to go with it. And they're divided into 4 sections for us, and that is the collection, the analysis, publishing and migrating, and then tracking and maintaining data. GIS was a platform that allowed us to perform many of those things. There just was a little bit of a smart aspect that was missing from this. So how did we go about creating the GIS portion to begin with? Well, we had to really understand kind of what information we didn't have. There's a lot of value in what you don't know. And in order to be able to do that, you have to know what you don't know. And utilizing some of the standard templates and things that we had seen in other industries, it kind of gave us a outline or a format of what things to kind of expect with our utilities. And specifically in some of these data sets that we had seen that were built on the utilities network, that had a lot of different features, a lot of different attributes, a different way of thinking, a different way of approaching. So being able to abstract ourselves from it. We needed to decide what information that we needed to collect after we figured out what it was that we didn't know. And be prepared for a shock when you do that, because you'll be surprised as to what it is that you really don't know about your campus and where those gaps are, and how to be able to fill them in. Then you decide how you're going to collect that and choose the method to do so. What locations do you actually need to go and see? There's a lot of value in putting your eyeballs on what it is that's out in the field, and then determine the manpower that you needed in order to be able to do that. I was very fortunate in the very beginning of the project that we took on for our telecommunications, of being able to kind of get a glimpse of what we had as far as communications rooms based on some GIS data beforehand. And with over 900 rooms, I could determine how many personnel I was going to need to stick in those rooms. So having that information at my fingertips was pretty handy. And then we had to schedule audits to be able to be done, centralize and capture that data, and then integrate that captured data into the modeling software. And we chose, I'll show in just a moment, I'll talk a little bit about our telecommunications and the modeling and tie it together as to how it was that led us to Utility Network. First, we needed to know what the central objective of the overall project was, and we do use agile project management, so we run things in sprints and where we have different iterations and phases of deliverables that we're giving out to a customer, and we also treat ourselves as a customer. But we needed to develop products that benefited the university as a whole, and not just one particular individual, not just to meet one need, but to meet the needs of the university as an entire entity, and create the systems that empower other people to interact with the information, and then be able to contribute to its further enhancement or development, kind of a continuous improvement approach. And then we needed to seek the opportunities to improve and expand and be open-minded that we were going to need to do that. So whatever system we designed to interact with our utilities or any of our other GIS products, we need to design it in such a way that we would get information back that would help us to continue and improve it. And we wanted everything to exist on the same platform. We utilized several ESRI products to be able to affect that in specifics with our telecommunications. We utilized such things as Survey 123. We used Collector at the time, which is now transforming into field maps. We also used Workforce for ArcGIS and the ArcGIS Online platform. But we needed to know that we could go further in the future and not just rely on those platforms. How are we going to be able to create more intelligence behind them? So that helped guide us into, well, we needed something that was smarter, and we needed something that would move us from a reactive to a proactive posture, so that we would not just be putting out fires, but we would be looking at and predicting where the next fire is going to be. In order to do that, we had to apply our core values of service, integration, efficiency, and delivery, and look to see where it was that these opportunities, where they existed, that it would benefit. Now, I was running through those slides pretty rapidly, only so I could kind of get to the good stuff and what it is that we actually did. So, well, we talked a little bit about. Let me end this over here so I can get my screen back. Sorry, technology is our friend, I promise. So as I talked about, we had GIS and utilities, and so we knew that there was value in mapping and visualizing where things were on campus, and then it started telling a story as to how things interacted with one another, so that we were able to see that if this was a safe area for us to be able to perform any kind of construction or maintenance or something into, and what types of things we needed to avoid. And it also told a really good story of just exactly how complex the utilities infrastructure is on campus. And this was exceptionally valuable in a two-dimensional realm, because we get a generalized idea of the location, where it is, how it exists, what it's interacting with, the buildings, some of the information about what is there, the pipe sizes, some of the attributes and things that we could use. But the smart component was still missing, was being able to tell us how can we analyze anything, like what is flowing through that particular pipeline, or how much is going there. How do we analyze the volumes of water that we're putting through? Meters are great, but what's sitting in the pipeline? What with our heating and cooling, and where we actually generate this, the energy source, how much are we outputting? How much is being used? How much are we losing because of friction loss and or pipe deterioration, or just old equipment or outdated leaky areas. So we wanted to take a comprehensive approach to what would be able to benefit us in seeing that. We wanted to go from, we don't see our world in 2 dimensions, we see our world in 3 dimensions. So we wanted to be able to take this, a 2-dimensional, and put it into a realm or a perspective that kind of made sense to where we were looking at our world 3-dimensionally. And we ultimately wanted to be able to go as far as to say, well, now we can see contours and different elevations on our campus, and what's going on above ground, and how do we interact with that. But what is happening when we go underground? And I'm hoping that it'll cooperate with me here. So bear with me for just a moment, a lot going on the computer. But we are actually able to go and see what is happening underground. So we see our vaults and a pipeline here. This is our high pressure steam system in one particular target area that we put together as kind of a demonstration of where we wanted to go and what the benefit was going to be, and couple that with what we had done in telecommunications. So this is where we wanted to end up. And we knew that we had to have a lot of information. And Ray was right when he said there is a lot of rules and a lot of data, and you need the quality of data to be able to come in. But the reason we chose Utility Network is because of what we were able to do with our telecommunications, and being able to enhance some of the information that we could get off of just a traditional 2-dimensional map. Such things as, where do these lines go? How are they connected to one another? Actually being able to trace them out, going inside of the building. What is it that they interact with? How are they connected? We got 48 strands and that are available on one cable on a particular FC, and it's in multi-mode as it runs between 2 different buildings. And what do those buildings look like? As far as how many things are in there, what's associated with it, and all of the different joins. So you have hierarchical data as well as some transactional data from where our network components are interacting with each other. And seeing this in use and realizing the practicality of being able to start in one place and trace from a switch, from your core switch, from where you're starting in your data center, all the way across each and every building to the communications closet, to the switch, through the SFP, to the patch panel, to the actual port where the computer is connected, and being able to identify where that is inside of a building. It proved itself as being tremendous value. for lots of different reasons, security being one of them, information on, where we need to do repairs and how we need to fix things, where they're having a problem, can we troubleshoot stuff. So seeing that technology work, we started asking a lot of questions, and we realized, and this is actually, there's two parts of this. That one is built in ArcMap, and it's utilizing an extension through some partners we have with Geograph in a product they call Crescent Link. And we started asking questions with them about how we could do things similar to this when it comes to our other utilities. How can we trace out where that water line goes, or how can we trace out where our heat and our steam and everything else is going? And that's when we started deep diving, and we were referred to Utility Network, with Utility Network being able to give us a comprehensive look at what we had, where it was going, what would happen in those scenarios of what if we turn off a valve? Well, same concept here is, what if we turn off a switch? How many buildings are going to be out? How much of an outage do we have? How's that going to inconvenience our students, our staff, or research projects, or healthcare patients? Where are we going to be able to see that information? So that's where Utility Network came in, that we realized that we were able to do this as far as all of our other systems are concerned, with the same concepts running in parallel with what we're already doing with our network. And one of the big benefits for Utility Network kind of drove us into an area, and then it's the second component of this, is that it forced us into an enterprise system where all of our data is no longer housed in ArcGIS Online or in our local databases, where we're having to propagate through REST services or whatever to be able to consume those. But we were able to move to Portal, which is an enterprise solution, and where we're able to store things and keep our data stores in something that made sense for us, where we would be able to use our data on premises, not having to send it off premises. And some of the rules, and I keep using that word rules, but some of the workflows and architecture send us into a direction of where we needed to go, and it solved some problems where we had secured and non-secured services, some that wouldn't propagate through ArcGIS Online. But by moving to an enterprise solution, since this is federated, we are able to offer secured and unsecured services right here on premises, and we can restrict who it is that we want accessing that or not. So this now empowers all of our folks that are in the field to be able to have this information in the palm of their hands. This is already done for our telecommunications, and we're using the same principles and concepts to be able to apply that into our other utilities of what we need as far as our data is concerned, to be able to put that same information out into the hands of a worker in the field that needs to know what's going on with the system that they happen to be working on, or if they want to be able to report information back to us. The same systems and processes that we use for collecting the information can be put into the hands of those that are in the field to be able to talk back to us about information of something that has changed, or if they've repaired something or removed something out of assets or inventory, that we would be able to move those devices accordingly. So that led us into a very solid decision that we wanted to go here. And the best way for us to be able to do that and take a comprehensive look at our campus was to emulate the same workflows and designs of what we had done with our network infrastructure already. And the capability for doing that came to us through the form of Utility Network. And we're looking very forward to getting everything consolidated and being able to show this in the future, where we have an entire campus that is using Utility Network. And with that, Brian, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Eric.
Thanks, Eric. Much
I'll
appreciated.
share my screen, and then you can take us home.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I'm gonna move pretty quick here. We've only got 5 minutes left, and I definitely want to get to the polls. So we normally kind of walk through here, kind of resources. I do want to thank Brian, Ray, and Eric for the great information and examples. Some powerful stuff they're doing, and I hope everyone today takes note and reaches out. These guys are doing great work. So again, we do have some resources. We go over this every webinar. I did add the links to these pages in the chat, so everyone has access to them. Our Smart Campus Ops Experience Builder page, the ArcGIS Solutions page where you want to focus on the utility area. We are working on an education banner. We just don't have it yet. And then I also added a link to the ArcGIS Utility Network. Next slide, Brian. So this is something we've been talking about internally. We did bring it up on the last webinar, where we're putting some focus, and we have a thought around a campus utility mapping community, kind of a user group. Rosemary, we have a poll. Rosemary's going to launch that here. We'll leave it up for about 30 seconds, and really all we want to know is if you'd be interested. We'll have all the information on the back end to follow up with you if you are. But just to keep in mind that, you know, this is a user-led group. So like Ray and Eric here today, we want to hear the good, we want to hear the bad, we want to hear the ugly. It's the only way we can make things better. This is going to be a focus specifically on, you know, higher ed and campus environments. So again, if you'd be interested in that, we will certainly provide some technical updates here and there. But the primary focus would be to hear from users, what they're doing, how they're doing it, what it's helping, what kind of workflows they're tackling with it. So that way everyone can kind of be on the same page. If there are questions, as we've seen in these webinars, they can be answered, you know. So if you're interested, please click yes in this poll. And again, we'll follow up with you to kind of let you know what the cadence is going to look like. We'll be looking for presenters, obviously, for these different sessions. So again, please complete the poll. All right, and then finally, just to give us a couple minutes for Q&A, I always kind of say, Brian, next slide with the actions. You know, if you know your ESRI account manager and you do have questions, please reach out to them. If you don't, you can reach out to me directly. I can either answer the questions for you, work directly with you, or, you know, I can connect you with your account manager. And again, we will have a survey at the end of this. Please fill that out for us. We do make changes and assess what we're going to move forward with in these webinars based on that. Next slide, Brian.
Yeah, so let's open it up to questions. We have a couple minutes left. So one of the ones that came in, and not to put you on the spot, Ray, but was, would you be willing to share the Michigan asset package?
So the rules and the domains are solid on it, but there are still a couple of the other tables behind the asset package that aren't 100% solid yet. And so I'd like to get those finished off, and then I also have to get administration permission to do so. Okay,
sounds good. Yeah, and that's something too, I mean, just internally, I'd love to follow up with you on, you know, we can pass that asset package internally, just, you know, verify that it's in a good condition, and that could be something potentially if there's permissions to move that forward. That's great. Thank you, Ray. Any other questions you see popping out, Justin?
Yeah, there's one at the bottom that says, Eric, can we see your portal that you shared?
I think, can the public see it, maybe is the question? Is it,
yeah,
public, or it's an enterprise portal, right? Just internal, Eric?
It's an enterprise portal, and we don't have web access enabled yet, but we are getting ready to do that because we've had quite a few people that are wanting to do that. But anyone that wants to reach out to me, either through LinkedIn or through contact information provided here, I'll be glad to set up a time to demonstrate that and go through the pains that we had to go through for setting it up, because there are a few things that we needed to clean up in order to do that.
Yep. And Brian, last one, can you talk about telecommunications and what can be modeled? You have conduit, fiber, cables, anybody?
Great question. We have, I wish I had the link up on, we'll reach out after the call. There's a wealth of detail that can be modeled in the communications asset package that's already detailed out. We've got a schema. There's a couple examples of what that model looks like. So I'll send a link to that out to, sorry, I can't see the question was from Paul. I'll send that link out, and to the other attendees, if there's interest, we'll follow up with kind of a Q&A blog, and we'll send that out to everybody that attended. So if you are interested in well as that, we'll let you be able to get access to it.
Yep. And that looks like it. We're at the top of the hour, so we'll close things out. Again, Eric, Ray, thank you guys very much Thanks to everyone for attending. I hope this was helpful. And again, please follow up if you'd like information from Brian or I. We're certainly happy to answer. If you'd like us to connect you with Ray and Eric, we will certainly ask them. and if they're open to that, we'll send you along to them. These are busy guys, but yeah, thank you all again. And remember, we've got one more coming up in November, focused on public safety. So see you all.